We have some very important news. Buckingham Palace has just announced that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has died. She was 96 years old. The Queen died just a few moments ago, the announcements at Balmoral. She was the longest reigning monarch in British history and the world's oldest head of state. Her eldest son and heir, Charles, the former Prince of Wales, is now the King.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The Palace has just issued this statement. It says the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow. Within the past few minutes, Buckingham Palace has announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. To recap on the statement, the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King, that is Charles, and the Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow.
And that was a statement from Buckingham Palace this afternoon. And that was followed by one from the new King, King Charles III, as we know he will now be. The death of my beloved mother, Her Majesty the Queen, is a moment of greatest sadness for me and all members of my family. We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms and the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world. During this period of mourning and change, my family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and the deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held. And Chris, that was the statement from her son, the new King, Charles III.
Yes, we heard the Prime Minister refer to the King as that. We've since sought some clarification from the King's office, and they have also confirmed that he will reign as King Charles III. People might ask, why are we talking about that? Well, of course, the Queen's father wasn't called George. He reigned as King George VI, but he was his actual name was Bertie. So it was not ever certain until we had confirmation that the former Prince of Wales would rule as King Charles III, and that has now been confirmed by the King's office.
We've had some more statements. This from the former Prime Minister John Major. For 70 years, Her Majesty the Queen devoted her life to the service of our nation and its well-being. And he talks of this moment of deep sadness. Tony Blair wrote, "We have not just lost our monarch, but the matriarch of our nation, the figure who more than any other brought our country together, kept us in touch with our better nature, personified everything which makes us proud to be British." And the Leader of the Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, wrote, "For all of us, the Queen has been a constant presence in our lives, as familiar as a member of the family, and yet one who has exercised a calm and steadying influence over our country. Most of us have never known a time when she was not there. Her death is not only a tragedy for the royal family, but a terrible loss for us all." And I think that is a sentiment that will chime with so many people this evening, both here and across the world. A sense of profound, in a way, personal loss, which is, in some ways, seems ridiculous. We didn't know her, did we? We only knew what we saw, but we feel something very profound.
Yes, I think probably the last time people might remember feeling like this was someone they didn't know might have been the sudden death of Princess Diana, when people were expressing emotions for someone they had never personally known. A different set of circumstances, of course, for this queen who reached the amazing age of 96, but who has been through, herself a very personally difficult period, having lost the man upon whom she relied so much. Since April of last year, she has reigned as a widow queen, and I don't think we should underestimate quite how difficult she found that adjustment, not having Prince Philip by her side. So, yes, I mean, and I think as the country now thinks about how it will pay respects, we think about what will happen to the Queen, and we know that her coffin will lie. It will rest in at Balmoral Castle. It will rest there so that staff at the castle can pay respects to her. Look at the picture there of the Queen. This was actually issued when Prince Philip passed. That's taken in the grounds of Balmoral, which is it's actually a huge estate with mountains and lochs. And the Queen even had a corgi named Mick, after Loch Mick, which is on the Balmoral estate. But as a reminder here, looking at these pictures, of actually he wasn't just there supporting her. His presence was felt in many other ways, and just as a mental support, someone whom you can bounce ideas off at the end of the day, or talk about what happened during a difficult royal tour. And she's reigned as a widow queen. I think she's looked like a diminished figure since his passing. And little did we expect her own passing to come 18 months after the loss of her husband.
Yes.
From Balmoral. The death of Her Majesty the Queen is a huge shock to the nation and to the world. Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built. Our country has grown and flourished under her reign. Britain is the great country it is today because of her. She ascended the throne just after the Second World War. She championed the development of the Commonwealth from a small group of 7 countries to a family of 56 nations, spanning every continent of the world. We are now a modern, thriving, dynamic nation. Through thick and thin, Queen Elizabeth II provided us with the stability and the strength that we needed. She was the very spirit of Great Britain, and that spirit will endure. She has been our longest ever reigning monarch. It's an extraordinary achievement to have presided with such dignity and grace for 70 years. Her life of service stretched beyond most of our living memories. In return, she was loved and admired by the people in the United Kingdom and all around the world. She has been a personal inspiration to me and to many Britons. Her devotion to duty is an example to us all. Earlier this week, at 96, she remained determined to carry out her duties, as she appointed me as her 15th Prime Minister. Throughout her life, she's visited more than 100 countries, and she has touched the lives of millions around the world. In the difficult days ahead, we will come together with our friends across the United Kingdom, the Commonwealth and the world to celebrate her extraordinary lifetime of service. It is a day of great loss, but Queen Elizabeth II leaves a great legacy. Today the crown passes, as it has done for more than 1,000 years, to our new monarch, our new head of state, His Majesty King Charles III. With the King's family, we mourn the loss of his mother, and as we mourn, we must come together as a people to support him, to help him bear the awesome responsibility that he now carries for us all. We offer him our loyalty and devotion, just as his mother devoted so much to so many for so long. And with the passing of the second Elizabethan age, we usher in a new era in the magnificent history of our great country, exactly as Her Majesty would have wished, by saying the words, "God save the King."